Because if the husband and wife are constantly fighting or not holding up a responsibility, it's like a house divided amongst itself is not going to stand.
True.
Or at least if it's standing, it's not going to be really accomplishing something. It's going to be not 1 + 1 = 5. It might be 1 + 1 = 1.5.
Or 1.
Yeah,
You're
because
just looking
there's
up
so much energy is being wasted going out the door where it could be used together and they could be working together to accomplish the task God has for them.
Welcome to the Restore Go podcast, where we discover ways to restore our relationship with God and others. Now, here are your co-hosts, Biblical Therapist Pete Thompson and Biblical Coach Lynne Thompson. Together, let's learn how to restore go.
Welcome to Restore Go. I'm Biblical Therapist Pete Thompson.
And I'm Biblical Coach Lynne Thompson.
Today we're going to talk about marriage readiness.
Yeah, and that's a good question, because you meet people, singles, and they say, how do I know when I'm ready to be married? Like, am I ready? Do I wait to a certain time? Do I wait to a certain age? Maybe I need to be 18. Maybe I need to be 21. Maybe I need to be 31.
Well, it's really not about your age.
Yeah.
It's really about, are you mature enough in your faith that you can handle the needs of another person?
Yeah.
Because the demands that are going to be placed on you in a marriage are much more than what you're used to. Because it's always easier to kind of do your own thing when you were single.
Right.
And now you're kind of putting yourself out there that it's like, I've got to take care of this person. And it's really much different.
It is for sure. What they don't consider in marriage, which I've noticed, because a lot of it is, am I ready age-wise, or whatever they decide the right thing is as far as their litmus test. But sometimes they forget to consider, have they evaluated what the Bible says about marriage? Have they read the verses that say this is what marriage is supposed to look like if you're going to have a biblical marriage? And that really is the true test. Pete, you've seen hundreds of people asking your insights and your wisdom during counseling sessions whether or not they're ready to be married. You have couples that are dating and that are serious and are ready to take the next step. They'll come, or some of them come with a ring on their finger. They're doing premarital counseling. They ask you, am I ready? Are we ready? And you've seen so many people. I thought this would be a good opportunity for us to ask you these questions about marriage readiness.
Yeah.
I think in this episode, we're going to talk about women specifically, whether or not women are ready to be married, what they need to think about, what they need to ask themselves. And then the next episode, we'll take on the men as far as
Sounds
that
good.
question.
Sounds fair.
It sounds fair. Ladies first, right? We're not picking on you ladies. We're just ladies first. What do women need to think about when they're asking themselves, am I ready to marry?
Does the person have the ability to pick well? Because when you look at the past relationships that you've been in, that you dated for a while, might have been several months or several years, what has been the pattern of those relationships? Are those guys would be stellar husbands that just didn't work out, or were the guys that were being picked have all sorts of issues that really aren't marriage material themselves? So women, you have to look at what have I been picking in my previous relationships.
Yeah.
Because they can't just be cute. We know that humankind looks on the outer appearance and it's like, well, that's good. I'm good with that. But there's so many more details. There's so many things that you're going to need as the marriage goes on, and the different challenges in life that you're going to need, that you're going to want that guy to have.
Right. Well, I mean, we've all been there as teenage girls, right? I mean, I thought I was going to marry David Cassidy, right? So I don't think that would have worked out as well.
No.
But some women are stuck in that cute guy syndrome. And like you said, that's not biblical because man looks at the outer, God looks at the heart. And so they're tests for whether or not he's going to be a good life mate, right? This is forever is important. But we need to get past that. I'm going to read a verse. 1 Corinthians 13:11 says, "When I was a child, I used to speak like a child, think like a child, and reason like a child. When I became a man, or in this case, a woman, I did away with childish things." And so it's important to move past the adolescent stage of, oh, he's so cute. That's all that really matters, right?
Yeah. Well, because the cuteness eventually wears off. You know, your relationship.
They're no longer puppies.
Yeah. Everybody loves the puppies, but nobody loves the adult dogs. But your relationship is going to be, can't be based on physical attraction alone.
Right.
Because there's going to be times in the future when you need that person to be able to adult up and grow with you and be willing to take on the responsibilities that you're willing to take on.
Right.
And if they're just used to getting everything they want because they're handsome, cute, or attractive, sometimes they're not as flexible and they're not a good long-term partner because they're not used to having to put a lot into the relationship.
Right. Exactly. Well, and you also mentioned something else that is super important and is often a touchy subject in marriage.
There's the S word.
S word.
And a lot of people think it's a foul language word, and it's the word submit.
Yes.
And that, is even really big in the church. And there's a reason why the submitting is so important, because it helps create order.
Right. Well, culture has really tarnished the word. And culture and sin too work against the biblical concept of submission. And it's not what people think it is. I did a deep dive into this, and when you hear the word submission, you see a man who's really being mean to his wife. That's the first thing that comes into your head. But that's not what God meant when he wrote this.
But man has abused this role.
Right.
I mean, the culture, there's plenty of examples. I see tons of examples in my counseling sessions where men have abused us and saw it kind of almost like a power trip.
Right, exactly. And that's the opposite of what was intended.
Yes.
Jesus kind of dealt with this when he was here on earth and had to deal with the culture of destroying what God had created. In Matthew 19, the Pharisees come to Jesus and they ask him basically if it's okay to divorce their wives. That's why, hey Jesus, while you're here, you seem to be smart. You have all the answers. Can we divorce our wives?
I want my get out of jail free card.
Exactly. Yeah, she's not doing the dishes enough or whatever. And Jesus must have been so frustrated because he's probably thinking, you know what? God has not divorced you, the nation of Israel, and y'all are more deserving of divorce than any woman I've ever met. I mean, he had to deal with their, rejecting the Messiah.
Yes.
And so there's things that were divorce worthy for them, but now they want to know, no, I want my way, right? So what does Jesus do? He points them back to the beginning. He points them back to the original intention of what the marriage was supposed to be. He says, for this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no man separate. And so, Jesus just points him back to the beginning. He's like, go back to the text. You missed it. Go back to it. That's the question you should be talking about, not how do I ditch what I wrote. He pointed out to God's plan, to that marriage was sacred, and it was to protect the man and the woman in a relationship that was lifelong, a lifelong commitment.
And this is the foundation of marriage, of two people becoming one. Yeah. Because the two people becoming one is is much more efficient in raising a family, of serving God and doing all the things God has called us to do.
Right.
It's much more efficient because two people serving God together as a husband and wife, and maybe if they're blessed with kids later, that's another blessing. But 1 + 1 is not 2 in God's economy. 1 + 1 is 5, because there's so many things that as spouses support each other in what God has called them to do.
Right.
They're able to do amazing things because they know their spouse has their back.
Right.
That is critical.
Right. Well, I mean, let's look at the idea. Let's start from where submission comes from. And so the verse everybody talks about, Ephesians 5:22.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here it is. Here's where the whole idea of submission, which really they don't even use the word submission in the Hebrew. It's more it's subject, and I'll go into that. It says Ephesians 5:22, wives, be subject to your own husbands. Nice, we don't have to be subject to anybody else's husband.
Yeah.
That's the one we got. As to the Lord, for the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is head of the church. He himself being the Savior of the body, but the church is subject to Christ, so also wives ought to be to their husbands in everything. We see this also in Colossians, and then in 1 Peter talks about it as well. But it's the idea of being subject to. Okay, so I looked that up. And subject means to place or rank under. Okay, so it's a military expression of being like a rank. Okay, so if you use it in that capacity in the military, the soldiers, they're not going to go off doing their own thing, because can you imagine if you're in the middle of battle or something and the soldiers all go, hey, we're just going to kind of do our own thing. We're not going to listen to the general.
Well, we're scared about this. We don't trust the general any longer, so we're going to do our own thing.
Right. We're just going to do our own thing. And so, I mean, if that happens, it's total chaos and the mission isn't successful. I mean, there have been amazing missions that have gone off without a hitch. And it's because they submitted to the authorities above them that were submitting to the authorities above them. And, you know, it's been thought out, all of it, so that the mission is successful.
And everybody is doing the role that they were designed to do.
Yes, exactly. And so that's not to say the soldiers are more important than the generals, right? They're not, because both are necessary for the mission to be successful. Yep. So it's the same with family, right?
Because if the husband and wife are constantly fighting or not holding up a responsibility, it's like a house divided amongst itself is not going to stand.
True.
Or at least if it's standing, it's not going to be really accomplishing something. It's going to be not 1 + 1 = 5. It might be 1 + 1 = 1.5.
Or 1.
Yeah.
You're
because there's so much energy is being wasted going out the door, where it could be used together and they could be working together to accomplish the task God has for them.
Well, and I think this is something that women need to think about when they're asking themselves, am I ready to be married? You know, first, are you going to be able to pick someone? But second of all, they need to say, you know, can I find someone that I could submit to? I remember my mom saying to me when I was younger, you know, well, teenager, and she was like, make sure that you find a man that you can submit to. And that was really wise, because you're going to submit. Now pick someone that you wouldn't mind being submissive to, or subject to in this case. And so you need to make those good decisions.
Well, yeah, they have to be mature, but also you have to trust their judgment, because this, you know, and so getting to know them well enough, not just dating for 6 months and saying, oh, we've got a lot of happy feelings about each other.
We've got on some great dates.
Yeah. But it's like how they handle difficult situations. Are they calm under pressure? And so because you guys are tying your wagons together. And so how this man shows himself in stressful situations, in calm situations, and all kinds of different types of events, because the dating process is really getting to know who that person really is, not who they say they are, right, or who they appear to be, right, but who they actually are. Because, you that's who you're going to submit to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you find couples that one of them's not a believer. And you're like, well, what are you doing? You're going to start out your marriage being in disobedience to God, because God has said that you're not supposed to be marrying an unbeliever.
Well, and I talked with one couple, this is years back in California.
Without details given.
Yeah, in California. And it's like, one was an atheist and one was a Christian. And so I very politely told both of them, you're a bad atheist because you're willing to marry a Christian, and you're a bad Christian because you're willing to marry an atheist. So they really didn't believe in what they said.
Neither one of them were being honest to what they said they believed.
And so their relationship really was a mess.
Well, you know what? That reminds me of another one. What was her name? Dr.
Schlesinger, yeah.
Yeah, like she was a radio show lady.
This is years ago.
Years and years ago. Now we're so our age. But I remember, I'll never forget this. So this guy calls in and he says to her, Dr. Laura, he says, I need your advice because I love God, and he is the most important person in my life, is having a relationship with God and loving him and obeying him, and that's the most important. And I'm in love with a girl who's not a Christian, not a believer, and doesn't want to become a believer. And Dr. Laura goes, well, I think the first step is you need to stop lying to yourself. And he's like, what? And she said, you just said that God's the most important thing in your life. Obviously, that is not true.
Yep.
She's the most important thing in your life. Hey, friends, let's be honest. It can be difficult, if not impossible, to find a Christian therapist that's true to your values. Pete Thompson knows that. As a licensed therapist, he is committed to providing godly counsel, introducing helpful tools, battling everyday problems like anxiety, addictions, as well as marriage and parenting challenges. Give Pete a call to set up your next confidential appointment online or in the office. Visit PeteThompson.org. Again, that's PeteThompson.org. You are not willing to be obedient to God. And she wasn't even, I don't think she was even a Christian.
Yeah.
She said that. So it's like, you're deceiving yourself if you're saying, God is the most important, and I want my compass to align with what God wants. God clearly in his word says, do not be unequally yoked. And then you go marry a non-believer.
Yeah.
How does that even make sense?
Or a person that just became a believer 6 weeks before.
So that might be missionary dating. Right?
Yeah, he's a Christian now, so he's safe. He's a
Christian. He's a Christian. Wait, is that what I need to say to be at the altar with you? Okay, that's what I'll do. That's what I'll say, But Jesus, another thing that dawned on me when I was studying this is Jesus is subject to the Father. And I'm going to read John 6:38. It says, for I have come down from heaven not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. Okay, so Jesus is like, I'm going to subject myself to the will of the Father. And then later on, a few chapters later, he says, my Father who has given them to me is greater than all, and no one is able to snatch them out of the Father's hand. I and the Father are one. Okay, so you look at that and you're like, wait, so he's subject to the Father, but the Father and he are one. So it's not one being better than the other. It's one in purpose. It's one in mission. He and the Father are one in mission and purpose. And I'm thankful that Jesus didn't go off mission to what the Father wanted. Otherwise, there is no payment for our sin. There's no cross. There's no dying and raising again and salvation for any of us. So Jesus is probably the best mission accomplished I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Because he did exactly what the Father wanted him to do. Yeah. So it's really cool.
And so a lot of times we look at the word submission, what it looks like, but it's really what is the mission.
Right.
And both persons, husband and wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, before they become husband and wife, it's like, what is our mission that we're setting out to do?
Right.
What, and another thing that we didn't talk about is the idea that what are you looking for in a husband? If you're looking for someone that's going to support you in your pre-med degree and to be a doctor, then you got to make sure that he's going to be okay with you not being home every night,
right? Because
you're doing your rounds. And so looking at, what what are your life goals and what is his life goals? Because if you don't have the same life goals, its submission is going to be really hard, and it's not going to work well.
Well, throughout the marriage, I mean, even in our marriage, there's been different times where it's like, okay, our mission is to create a family that loves God, that's honoring to him. And what that looks like as far as you working more or less hours, me working or not working, or, the different details ebb and flow with the relationship, with the marriage, but the mission has to stay the same.
Yeah.
And if any of those things get in the way of what the mission is, then you're off mission.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, okay. So now I thought we'd pivot to what is it exactly needed for a woman to see if she's ready to be in marriage. And fortunately for we women, we don't have to guess. We have an entire chapter dedicated to that, and it's Proverbs 31. And so you look through Proverbs 31, and it gives you a lot of ideas on what this woman looks like, who is a mother, probably a wife and a mother, and who runs her household well. And so I was going to go through some of these verses. Jump in whenever you want. So first of all, she is on her husband's side. In verse 11, it says this: the heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. So the heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. So she really is on his side. She's not working against him. She's working with him.
And she's using her gifts and talents to bless the relationship and bless the family, because, each husband and wife are going to have specific talents and abilities, and you let those go towards the mission.
Yes.
And the mission is blessed because each person brings something unique. Right.
She is a hard worker. We know that in verse 13. She looks for wool and flax and works with her hands in delight. And the part that struck me in this is that she's not just working hard. She's doing it with delight. She doesn't have this bitter spirit. She doesn't have this attitude. And I remember when the kids were young, there was a lot of work, And I was able, praise God, to stay home with them. But that meant during the day, a lot of times there was a lot going on. And then in the evening, it was still a lot to do. You were often either making dinner or cleaning up dinner, which meant I had to get a load of laundry going.
Or working overtime.
Yeah, or you were working overtime.
Yeah.
But I was doing laundry, and I was like, at first I was like having an attitude like, oh, it's laundry. And then I thought, you know what? Praise God that we have the clothes to be able to wash.
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to do this. Like, I don't have to send out and have clothes done. I can actually do them at home and get them all done. So I started changing my attitude in a grateful praise.
Yeah.
Also thinking about some women who have handicaps and they're not able to do some of those things. And so, I don't want to take that for granted, that God has blessed me with the ability to work hard with my hands and to do it in a joyful way. Number 3, takes care of her body and is strong. Verse 17 says it this way: she girds herself with strength and makes her arms strong. Okay, that sounds like a gym workout to me.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like weights. So, oh my goodness, I wanted to share this with you. I thought this was super funny. So on Instagram, there is this scene where a group of girls are like standing in a circle area. And then there's this leader that calls out things that might be a deal breaker on guys that they would like. So, they'll say something like, he doesn't have a job. And if that's a deal breaker for them, they like walk out of the circle, right? Or it might be he's on Snapchat all the time, or, he's gaming all the time, then they walk off and you see who's left, right? Who's willing to tolerate whatever. But I always wonder what would happen if they said he lets himself go and he's 70 pounds overweight. I wonder how many of them would stay in the circle. That's what I wonder. But I mean, it's kind of hypocritical if women are saying, well, I want a man to take care of himself and not be 70 pounds overweight, and they're not willing to do the same thing. That's kind of hypocritical to say. I want to think about that. So anyway, just putting that out there. But when I saw that, I was like, I can think of a lot of questions I would ask, which, that might be deal breakers.
Yes.
Does he like animals? No. Number 4, she is compassionate. And verse 20 says it this way. She extends her hands to the poor and stretches out her hand to the needy. And I think that's so important for women because I know, at least in our marriage, you are focused on the work and that's got to be done. And I'll notice some things on the side that are falling through the cracks. I mean, that's what women are really good at. Like, oh, that's falling through the cracks. And you're like, I want to minister to this person, or I want to do something for this person, because you're kind of ministering to them constantly.
Yeah.
In therapy. That's your job and that's your calling. But when there's other, whether there's a neighbor or a friend or somebody at church or something like that, that you see the need, you reach out in compassion and you try to fill that gap.
Well, and yeah, us being married almost 40 years, having that gentle heart of yours that, it's really a benefit in the relationship of that gentle heart that you have.
Thank you, honey. That's sweet. She takes care of her appearance. So verse 22 says, she makes coverings for herself. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Okay, I like this verse a lot because this means that I get to go shopping. That's what it means. But it means that she's not looking like she just went to the homeless shelter. She actually is thinking about her appearance. She's thinking about the way her clothing presents herself. Mm-hmm. Is she modest? Is she classy? That's important.
Yeah.
And so I like that.
Because she's a reflection of the husband.
Yes, exactly. And that's a lot of times women don't realize that. And you see women and the way they dress and you're like, some of them you're like, what are you doing? What message are you trying to give? Because the way women dress definitely gives a message. Mm-hmm. It does. Okay. Number 6, she elevates her husband for success. And the verse says in 23, her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. And that means he's actually gaining status. He's actually moving up in his job position. And it's not because of him, right? Because this Proverbs 31 is for us women to read and to know about. Mm-hmm. So that means we actually have an influence on our husband's success. And we have autonomy in that way. We have more control than we think we do.
Well, and all the years that I was working, you were keeping the home soft-spoken and calm so that I could do what I needed to do because I knew I always had a safe place to come home to. Right. And, we could always work out our issues. And so coming home was always a safe thing. And to do what I was doing and not have that, I wouldn't be able to stay doing it.
Right, because then your whole focus becomes on, what's going on at home instead of being able to rise up in your job when you were working.
And not be distracted,
yeah. And not be distracted, right, exactly. She says kind things. Verse 26 says, she opens her mouth in wisdom and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue.
Yeah.
So, I always think about that verse in Proverbs. I wish I would look that up. It talks about a foolish woman tears down her own home. Mm-hmm. And if a woman is speaking wickedly or being unkind to those in her household, she really is tearing down her own house. Number 8, she is not lazy. In verse 27, it says she does not eat the bread of idleness or laziness. So she's a woman who's getting it done. Mm-hmm. She's not sitting around eating bonbons.
And watching soap operas.
That used to be a thing, right?
Yeah.
Lastly, I want to end with an encouragement to women who are wondering if they're ready for marriage. And this is what Proverbs 31:30 says. It says, charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord, she shall be praised.
Yes.
Okay. So this is the thing about our culture that is really bothering is that, like you said, God looks at the heart. Mm-hmm. It's so focused on the looks. It's so focused on appearance and charm, which can be fake sometimes, right? Yes. You can pretend to be nice. You learn how to do that. And when I think of that, I think of swipe dating, which is really popular in our culture right now. And I don't know if somebody knows what that is, but there's like, you send your picture in and you probably doctor it up. It's
just as long as it's a recent picture.
Here's me when I was 18 and looking really great. But you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of The Bachelor. It's like an internet version of The Bachelor. because please pick me. I'm cute. I'm pretty. I have enough makeup. I have enough screens on this picture that I look really good. And it's so demeaning. And women, you're more than that. More than that.
You know, you need to let God be sovereign over your dating life.
Yeah.
And so that you're listening to the Holy Spirit guide you. Should I go to this event? You know, and maybe, do you want me to meet somebody here? And let him, because he has the ability to put two people together, that they're both ready to be married. They're both, you know, focused on him and serving him. And so they're going to be a great couple who it's going to be 1 + 1 = 5 or 6, because they're focused on him.
Well, let's think about it. If the swipe dating had been around in our day, we wouldn't have picked each other.
No.
You only dated, most of the girls you dated were brunettes.
Yeah.
I was blonde, and you had a handicap. Mm-hmm. I mean, if I was doing a profile picture, you know, or a check box of what I'm looking for in a man, I wouldn't have put handicapped man. I would have went, oh, that's more than I can handle. But I got to see the miracle of your healing and that whole process. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I would have missed out on so much. So you might be saying, I feel like it's almost like a menu, right? Where maybe it's the DoorDash thing going, right? you fill out,
dating.
I want extra mayonnaise, no onions, you know, all of that.
DoorDash dating.
Yeah, DoorDash dating. Deliver them to my door. There you go. I just filled out the form. This is what I'm looking for. Deliver to my door. But, you know, that shows how ridiculous it is. Mm-hmm. Because, like you said, where is the trust in God in that? Where's the sovereignty of God that says, I'm going to pick someone that you wouldn't have even ever thought of?
Yeah. Because when I was talking with you, it's like, oh, wow, she can carry on a conversation. Wow, there's intelligent things that come out of her mouth, because that wasn't always
Those
the
were
case.
The days. Oh, goodness. Well, I wanted to encourage women with some ideas, because, you know, we always are good with taking an idea and running with it. So here's some ideas, women, for meeting men that you need to be thinking about.
Yeah.
Stay out of the bars, first of all, because what do you have in common besides your favorite drink, right? Church events. You know, go to church events, any of them, because you don't know who's going to show up. It might be even a children's event, but there's some guy who's probably your age that you're looking for is going to be cleaning up afterwards and moving those chairs. Guaranteed. I know that. But our son had, you know, I was at an event. It was for, what was it for special needs? It was the special needs prom. That's what it was. And it was so fun. Oh my goodness. If you get a chance to do something like that, it was awesome. So I got to, they match up guys with guys and girls with girls. So it's not weird at all. And so, you know, because you're all out there just woo, dancing and being silly and having fun and eating together. And the gal that I was paired with was so sweet. She was just adorable. But after it's done, I look over and there's my son. And I'm like, oh, hi. He's like, yeah, they needed someone to move the chairs. So there you go. So, you know, that would have been a good opportunity for someone to meet someone.
Yeah.
So volunteer is what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Volunteer and you have areas that you like and you're interested in anyway. So volunteer in those areas.
Well, yeah, because, you know, if you go into an event that's volunteering, it's like, all right, you already have something in common besides being a believer.
Yes.
You have something in common that's important. And so at least a good conversation starter. Exactly.
You could also create social events. It's a thing. I mean, you could have a Valentine party. What do they call it? Galentine's for girls. But they have Valentine's parties that you can just show up and you don't need a date. You could do a mystery dinner. Those are so fun. You could do Christian book clubs. You could start a club of some kind, whether it's dance or, I don't know, different things that you're involved in that you like. Start a club. Invite guys and girls. So it's a mixed bunch. I was joking with Pete because as we're heading into the holidays, we do Christmas caroling. And I was like, why don't we do Christian caroling where we could, any time of the year, you can get a bunch of people together and you could go house to house and just sing a couple Christian songs, worship songs. You could even drag someone who plays a guitar or whatever, and just sing a couple songs at their door. I mean, why would people mind? I don't think that they would mind. And if they open the door and they enjoy a couple songs and you say, thank you for letting us sing for you, maybe leave them a Bible or ask them if there's something that you can pray for them then on the doorstep. Just say, hey, we just wanted to bless you. We would love to pray for you. Is there something that we could pray for? So
because it's always good to give something without expecting anything.
Yes. And what a great way to serve your neighbors. And if you invite guys and girls that are single to do that with you, you already have someone who's willing to be on mission already and do the work of the Lord. So how cool would that be? So girls, make it happen. See who shows up at your events. It might be your future husband.
And so I think in closing, all these ideas that we're talking about, it's really, God, am I ready for marriage? What are the things that you still need to work on with me? What are the things that you need to show me? What are the things that I need to practice so that I'm able to submit to you, Father? And as we're able to submit to the Father, we're going to be more able to submit, and look for the type of man that God wants to put in your life, rather than, well, he's got to be 6'4", he needs to make this much money and all. It's like, as you submit to God and you're in right relationship with him, it's so much easier for him to put you in touch with the person that might be a really good fit for you, and as you're a good fit for that person. And so looking at, God, what do I need to do? What are the last steps that I need to do to be ready to get married?
Thank you for listening to the Restore Go podcast. Now, Restore Go is produced by Pete Thompson Christian Counseling. Pete is a licensed therapist who offers affordable family and individual counseling in North Texas and online throughout the United States. Pete provides counseling from a biblical perspective. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and visit us at PeteThompson.org.